Tuesday, 4th, 13/21. We're starting factoring polynomials. And today we're going to be doing greatest common factor, GCF. All right, you guys have heard greatest common factor before, right? With like factor trees and things. It's what's the biggest number that both numbers that we're talking about can be divided by. So if I said, what's the greatest common factor of 15 and 12, what would it be? 3, right? Because that's the biggest number that goes into both. What about if I said 24 and 60? What would my greatest common factor be?
6. 12. Yeah.
12, right? Because 12 goes into both of those. So that's just refreshing our memories about what greatest common factor is. It's the greatest number that both of those numbers have in common. Yesterday, some students had trouble with, why can't it just be like 2? Well, that's a factor. It's not our biggest value factor, right? Yeah. Oh, you guys, I got a new pencil sharpener. Wait for it.
Whoa! It does things.
What? It's a good one, right?
Woo!
Oh, Ben's got to go try it. He's in disbelief.
Does it work on mechanical pencils?
It does not work on mechanical
It's
pencils.
actually sharp.
It's
I
sharp.
realized it's been a long time since I've had this pencil.
You still have it, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we're just going to jump into examples here because that's the best way to kind of go through the process. So before, we were multiplying to create polynomials, right? What we're going to do today and the next few weeks is we're going to be like working backwards to figure out what was multiplied to create the polynomial. Okay, so this is where we kind of reverse our strategy here. So I'm going to give you this binomial, 4x to the 4th plus 24x to the 3rd. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the coefficients. So we have 4 and 24. What would be the greatest common factor of 4 and 24? 4. Okay. Then we're going to look at the variables with exponents. So we've got x to the 4th and x to the 3rd. Okay, and we're going to ask ourselves, first of all, they both have x's, so that's going to be part of this. And then we have to take the smallest exponent value. That's what they would have in common, right? So our greatest common factor for these two variable terms is going to be x to the 3rd. It'll make sense in a minute. Like right now you're like, what, why? But I promise it'll click in a second. So our overall greatest common factor is 4x to the 3rd. So I find the greatest common factor of my coefficients, the greatest common factor with the variables and exponents, and then I smush them together. Now I'm going to ask myself, what do I multiply 4x to the 3rd by to create 4x to the 4th plus 24x to the 3rd? I know you guys right now, you're writing this down and you're thinking this doesn't make sense, but it's all going to be like, oh, this is easy in a second. In fact, I heard students say yesterday, this is really easy. So we've got our greatest common factor on the outside here of our parentheses. And we know we're going to multiply this times a quantity to create 4x to the fourth plus 24x to the third. So what do I have to multiply 4x to the third by to make 4x to the fourth? X. And then what would I need to multiply 4x to the third by to make 24x to the third?
6x.
Ta-da! Just 6 because our exponent is still a 3 there.
Ow.
And there you go. That's your answer. So we figure out what our greatest common factor is for the whole polynomial, stick it on the outside, and then we ask ourselves, how do we create what we started with? How can you check your work? Distribute and see if you get 4x to the fourth plus 24x to the third. Right? And then you do, and you're happy, and you move on. Okay, so let's do another one. 8y squared minus 24y. So we're going to find our greatest common factor of our coefficients. So that's why I wrote 8 and 24. I know it's kind of hard to see that with the glare. And then we're going to find the greatest common factor of y squared and y. So what is the greatest common factor of 8 and 24? Atlee?
8.
8. And what is the greatest common factor of y squared and y? Y. It has a little 1 there, but we don't have to put that. But that's our greatest common thing that can be multiplied to make those two things. So my greatest common factor overall is 8y. So I'm going to say, all right, 8y times what will make 8y squared minus 24? Ben, what do you think?
Y and -3.
Y minus 3. Perfect, because 8y times y gives me the 8y squared. 8y times 3 gives me the negative 24y. How are we feeling about this? Katie?
I don't understand how you would get those in the parentheses.
So I have this 8, so I'm trying to make this, right? So what can I multiply 8y by to get 8y squared? So 8y times y, if I were to distribute this, is going to give me 8y squared. What can I multiply 8y by to make negative 24y? 8y times negative 3, right? So imagine there's like these little arrows here, and you're just working backwards to figure out what would I have to do to create this. Yep. So we're going to do a few more practice ones. Next page for me. We've got 20x to the third plus 30x squared. Okay, so what's my greatest common factor of 20 and 30? Everybody?
10.
10. What's my greatest common factor of x to the third and x squared?
X squared.
X squared. So my overall greatest common factor is going to be 10x squared. So then I'm going to have 10x squared on the outside. So then, Katie, I want you to walk me through this one. What do I have to multiply 10x squared by to make 20x to the third?
2x.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep. And then what do I need to multiply 10x squared by to make 30x squared?
3.
Yep. And this is plus because this is a positive here. If this was negative, then that would be a negative. And there's my answer. Ooh, now we have 3 values. Yes, sir.
So on number 2,
Mhm.
could you just do as the answer 8y times negative 3y? Or would it have to be 8y times y minus 3?
Has to be times the y, because you need the 2 terms that we started with.
Okay.
You can't just make new terms. It's got to look like what we started with. Okay, so the greatest common factor of 15, 45, and 3 is 3. Greatest common factor of, okay, here's where it gets a little tricky. Because these don't all have variables with them, there is nothing else to be a greatest common factor. Like I can't choose x because this term doesn't have an x, right? So there is nothing else to go along with our greatest common factor. So my GCF of this polynomial is just 3, right? I can't multiply and then all of a sudden not have a variable. So I just have 3. So I put 3 out to the front. Nathan, 3 times what gives me 15x squared?
5x squared.
Yep. And Olivia R, 3 times what gives me 45x? Yep. And 3 times what gives me 3? Everybody? 1. And there's your answer. Okay, you guys are going to do this last one by yourselves.
Okay.
27x to the 4th plus 18x to the 3rd plus 45x squared. I'm going to freeze the screen. I'll work it out by myself, and then we will compare answers. Are we ready to check our answers?
Yes.
9x squared times the quantity 3x squared plus 2x plus 5.
Yay!
All right, good job, guys. Okay, I'm going to pass out your assignment that you'll start, obviously, here. We'll do one together, and then you guys will have, this will be your assignment for tomorrow. Sorry about having to do this on paper. I just, didn't have my whiteout. So you're going to use the exact same strategy that we just finished. Yesterday I passed this paper out and some of the students were like, wait, how do I do this? And I was like, you just did it. Like, it's exactly what we were just practicing. Where give me one? Yeah. All right, so we're going to do one of these together. Also, I want to explain kind of like how this works because it's more complicated. It's turned out to be more complicated than it should. So it just says, choose your grade. Your goal is to earn 100 points by completing at least 4 of each type of problem. So we're going to change this to say 96 because the students were really concerned that if you did 4 of each problem, you wouldn't get to 100, and everybody likes to have 100. So change that to 96. And then if you look, the copier's kind of funky, but this is a 6-point column, this is 8 points, and this is 10. So you just have to do 4 from each column. Just pick 4 problems. I don't care which ones you do. However, I'm fairly confident none of you would have done this one down here. So we're going to do this one together because this one's weird because there's 2 variables, right? So let's look at this one together. And it also has a negative, so that can be a little confusing. I'm going to zoom in. And yes, this can count as one of your 4. Okay, so first of all, what's my greatest common factor of my coefficients? Bryson?
7.
We're going to use -7. We're going to take the negative and make it part of our thing. So we're going to have to adapt. But yes, 7 is the number, so we're going to use -7. And then, how about my u situation? What would be my greatest common factor of the u's? Yes?
2, u2.
U squared. And then I have a v to the 5th. Can I do anything with the v to the 5th? Is there a v with both terms?
No.
Nope. So that's not going to be part of my greatest common factor. That's just going to be something I'm going to put in the parentheses section. So I'm going to take my -7 u squared, and I'm going to multiply it, to the inside of my parentheses to make what it would be in the quantity. So what am I going to multiply -7 u squared by to get -21 u to the 4th v to the 5th? Ethan, what do you think?
3 u to the 2nd,
And then I just bring down the v to the 5th. It just becomes part of the inside quantity part, like term. And then what am I going to multiply -7 u squared by to get positive 28 u squared?
-4.
Yep, that's it. And that's my answer. So you already have 1 done. You're welcome. So that means you only have 3 more to do from this last column, 4 from the middle one, 4 from the first one. Yes, sir. This is going to be your assignment for tomorrow. Yes. No hidden tricks or fine print. I don't want to scare you guys off after spring break.
I'm scared.
Okay. Let me stop this video.